Good day, folks. Everything new under the sun. Bank run Monday. Is everything collapsing? Well, I think there is kind of a slow motion. Um, I won't. I guess I won't say collapse happening now, but slow motion, absolute crisis going on right now. It has spread from the United States, of course, to other banks across the U.S., but also to Canada and some other countries as well, where they either have branches or they either have um, banks that are also in trouble. We're going to take a look at that. And I think this is all part of birth pains. So the idea of the birth pains in the last days, they increase in frequency and intensity, but they spike up and then they go away for a while. And then another trouble spikes up and then it goes away for a while. And then another trouble spikes up and then it goes away. Just like, COVID did during the pandemic, there was a big spike and then everything was quote unquote awesome for a little while. Then there was a big spike and then it goes down. Likewise, we have economic issues where there's periods of vast economic trouble happening. Then it seems to go away for a little while, and they seem to be able to put the pieces back together. Same with job losses. There's a big a purge of job positions, and then things level out for a while. And famine, starvation, the whole supply chain thing, I think we can see where that is kind of ebbing and flowing as it relates to the shipping rates from China to the United States, where there's a time where they're really slow and then they catch up and they're all at port and they're all unloaded and then they go back to China and then they get stuck in China for a while as all the ships are stuck there. If you're watching Monkey Works, he showed a video or a clip of basically all the tankers and the ships lined up off the coast of China, waiting to get loaded or waiting to move, goods and things like that. And it's all part of the birth pains as we see a spike and then it kind of goes away for a while and you think, oh, we beat that one. That wasn't too bad. And then a bigger problem arises. So we have kind of these pillars of Bible prophecy, and I have another graphic that shows the pillars. But we have, the pandemic kind of, I think, kind of initiating, kind of kicking stuff off. And we head into economic collapse, which economic collapse, World War III. One triggers the other triggers the first, etc. They exacerbate each other. And they also, when you're in war, they blame it on the economy. When the economy's going down, they blame it on the war. And so they're going to kind of shift the blame back and forth. And then we have job losses, which the Federal Reserve has come out and said, you know what, we're trying to raise interest rates because we want more job losses. Because if fewer people have money to, maybe they just have enough to pay the bills, they're not going to be going out there with, hundreds of dollars looking to buy a big screen TV. They're not going to be fighting with the other people who still have their jobs, who may have a bunch of money. That means the cost of things is going to become cheaper because there's oversupply and less demand, so the price falls. So this is what the Federal Reserve is trying to do. Quite literally, the end result of what they want to do is to make a pile of people lose their jobs, and this will deal with inflation, and it absolutely will, again, because of supply and demand idea. But then we move into the love of many growing cold, and you talk about societal collapse and chaos happening. And when that happens, when things get so bad, the government's going to have to step in to keep the peace and the order. And they will step in with huge government control. They tested that with the pandemic. We all complied. And so they're going to have the rules in place, the Emergency Measures Act in Canada. They're going to have that ready to go when they deem any sort of need to consolidate control, during an economic collapse or World War III or whatever the latest thing is. They're ready to go. They have rules on the books. They have precedent now. We all fell for it. They have precedent. They can do whatever they want. And then we move into a situation of world order and a mark of the beast. So let's get straight to the articles here. So what you see here, this is cbc.ca, Canada's mainstream media network, which is very left, funded by the Liberal government and very left. But this graphic shows kind of the size of the Silicon Valley Bank in relation to some of the other larger ones. So they're one of the larger banks, kind of on the second tier of larger banks. But in the largest ones, you have JP Morgan, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, Citibank. If one of those were to go down, I don't know that the U.S. government would have the money to bail those out. But certainly for that second tier, that $209 billion, the Federal Reserve is happy, or not the Federal Reserve, but the U.S. government is happy to ensure the complete bank and all the money owed. Now, normally the FDIC, the Federal Insurance, the Federal FDIC, Federal Department of Insurance, is that what it means? Anyways, the one that's supposed to back your deposits, Federal Deposit Insurance Company, that's what it means. But they only insure up to 250,000. So when you have big companies, small companies, startups in Silicon Valley that have payrolls, they may need $1 million. It's very common. If you have 10 people making $100,000 a year, you need $1 million in the bank to pay, to pay out the wages for that. Well, I guess they wouldn't get $100,000 every month, but you see what I mean. They, $1 million, $2 million, $5 million is really not a lot when you have a lot of employees to pay wages for each and every month, every 2 weeks, whatever it may be. So you're well over the $250,000 mark at that point, and the FDIC doesn't cover that. And the original thing that the U.S. government was saying was that we're not going to bail out the banks. We did that in 2008. We're not going to do that again. That's what Yellen came out and said. But it turns out that because everybody was panicking, the government came out. Biden himself indeed said that everything is awesome. Biden insists the banking system is safe. So they had the president trotted out there to shore up confidence in the markets. And that gives you an idea of how much simple confidence is in terms of the value of the US dollar. Fiat currency requires that everybody believe in it and everybody continue to have faith in it. If there is no faith, there is no value in that paper money or plastic money, which it is now in Canada. We have complete plastic money. There's no value to it. It's effectively garbage if we didn't have the trust that the government would back it up and that we can buy goods and services with that fiat currency. So again, interesting that they tried out the President Biden there to provide some confidence to the markets. Now, other nations are in trouble here as well. Canada had to take over one of the branches of the Silicon Valley Bank. I think, Credit Suisse is also having trouble. Another bank, so not just Silicon Valley, but another bank is now having trouble because people are getting spooked kind of all around the world. When these sorts of things happen, they go pull out some cash. And this includes the credit default swaps. Now, this is the idea where all the banks kind of back each other up. And if one fails, then 5 others will come to the rescue and back it up with this credit default swap. But the problem is if you have too many of those banks going down, it's too much for the other banks to handle and to buy up or contain or prop up, whatever it may be. And that's the case where you get a domino effect of banks starting to go down. And at some point, the credit default swaps don't work anymore. And there was a big uptick in the credit default swaps happening there. You see, now I don't pretend to know everything about this, but that's kind of the gist of the credit default swap. And you see a significant uptick on the Credit Suisse credit default swap value there. And this means that there's going to be trouble. Shares are falling in banks, and banks don't have enough. All the assets that they thought were worth maybe $10 billion. Now, with everybody losing confidence, maybe you're only worth $5 billion. And that means the same assets that they had, last week are worth half as much to this week as they were last week. And all of a sudden, these banks don't have enough money to cover all their deposits, even if they were to, sell them. The other thing is that they would have to sell their assets in a fire sale for much less than maybe they paid for them. So depositors know that, and if there's not enough backing in these banks, the depositors know, what, I better get my money out quick before everybody else scrambles on it, because there's not going to be anything left for me. And this is the trouble. If you have panic, you can very, very, very quickly have 1929 all over again. But 1929 happened, and it dragged on for the next 10 years after that, where things were very hard. There were soup lines. People were looking for jobs. In this day and age, we are so used to our conveniences and just depending on the government. We're not going to go out there and try and create our own work and create our own money. And because so many people are on the government dole and we're so entitled and we live so richly, we would handle economic collapse much worse than they did in 1929. So you talk about a Mad Max situation, societal collapse and chaos and that sort of thing going on, and that is a very real possibility. And it's going to be 100 times worse than 1929. People, at least in 1929, generally knew how to grow a garden, and they were much closer to the land, to the farmers. There was many more farmers not connected to any big banks who are still producing things, and they produce things a lot more cheaply as well. And they were able to get through this. But now we're so disconnected. Here is Blankfein. Says government actions removed reason for bank run. So the government stepped in and the government removed reasons for a bank run. Well, isn't that comforting? Regional banks are a incredible bargain. So they're saying maybe some of these bigger banks could go and buy up some of the smaller banks and more consolidation. That means more choice for you, doesn't it? And that means more competition in the space so that you get cheaper bank rates, right? No? Yes? Well, of course not. If you consolidate all these, you're going to get less and less choice, and the banks are going to start telling you what you're going to do, and they're going to force on you things. So, there's going to be some consolidation, but that's not going to be good. That's good for maybe the investors who are making millions of dollars, the rich people. Not good for you and I. So, I think this is confirmation that there was a bank run and there is a bank run happening. But hopefully that whatever the government did made it such that there's fewer reasons for a bank run. And I like this graphic where this dog is sitting in the middle of a fire, drinking his coffee and just thinking to himself, "This is fine. This is fine. Nothing to see here." There was an interesting image. I probably don't have it. I don't think it's going to work if I load it. Let me see if I can pull this one up here. Where is it? I don't know if this will play this one. No, it's not going to play it. Open with. Just give me a second. Stand by. Stand by. We'll see if we can play this one in a browser here. I'll add a browser. Yeah, that's... Sorry, folks. This is doing this real time here. I'm trying to add a browser to the recording. That's not what I want to show. Let's see. Let's try this here. Let's see. Open with Safari. Open with Safari. There we go. Let's try this. There we go. That's what I want to see there. Get rid of that. So here's this image. Unfortunately, that's not very big. Where he's saying, "Nothing to see here. Nothing to see here." So there you go. Fireworks, everything is being destroyed, but the government is saying, wave hands. Federal Reserve saying, "Nothing to see here. Everything is absolutely awesome." So, Biden says everything is awesome here. And this Blankfein person, whoever this is, said everything is awesome. Regional banks are an incredible bargain now, as long as the government does the right thing, and I am confident they will. It's all about confidence. It's all about faith in the government. And if you don't trust your government, there's trouble. And you know what? If you don't trust your government, there may be a time where you're going to lose credit score if you don't have faith in government, or if you're seeing, if you're sowing seeds of discord and causing people to lose faith in the government, like in China, you could be in trouble. The FDIC needs to explicitly guarantee all deposits now. Aikman said, "Hours matter." Now, I had CNBC here, so here's bank runs. This is the economic collapse blog. Can the Federal Reserve stop the avalanche of bank runs? Let me just pull up CNBC. Now, the markets are up because what this means is that they're expecting that the Federal Reserve is not going to raise rates now, and the markets love that. That means people will still be getting mortgages and still be cranking up their credit cards, etc. And basically, why Silicon Valley Bank failed? It failed because the depositors, all these startups, because the interest rates were increasing, they didn't want to take out loans because those loans would be more expensive. That means the whole Ponzi scheme of the bank accepting more and more deposits, which they then lend out to other startups to start up their companies. And they keep trading and giving this money back out to people over and over and over. Remember, there's nothing backing this. And for every deposit, they don't back it up with gold or silver. It meant that these startups were not interested in taking out loans, so they didn't want to keep the money going anymore. So as the Federal Reserve increases interest rates, fewer and fewer startups want to actually take out loans, start businesses, and move lots of money around. So the Federal Reserve is stuck. They want to raise rates to slow inflation, but raising rates means all these little companies and these banks are going to tank. So then the Federal Reserve and the government of the United States goes and prints a bunch of money to prop them up, which itself is inflationary. The more dollars you print, the less each of your individual dollars that you have in your wallet right now are worth, because there's money flooding the system that they're printing out of thin air, which is backed by nothing. And confidence decreases every time they do that. Yet the Federal Reserve wants to increase interest rates to slow down that inflation. So they're speeding it up on one hand and trying to slow it down on the other, and this is not going to work. It has to implode. And if they don't cap this off and stop this soon, it is going to trigger worldwide events. Bitcoin is rallying right now. Charles Schwab shares drop 11%, so that's significant. First Republic drops 50%, leads decline in bank stocks despite government's backstop of Silicon Valley. So what the government is doing is not actually necessarily working in this case, and it's yet to be seen whether this continues. And 1929 didn't happen in the span of 30 minutes. It did take some days for the news to get out into the newspapers, for headlines to get out there, for people to start realizing, oh, there's something going on in the stock market. Maybe I better go and get my money out. And so this is a slow train wreck, effectively. And if they don't really manage this quickly, this slow train wreck is really going to catch up, and people are going to get panicking even worse. Now, this may not be it, but you know it's coming. 1929 happened. Economic switchovers, world fiat currency switchovers have happened in the past, and they will happen in the future. We don't know exactly when, but we're getting close to the time. And I think it's going to be economic collapse and then war, or the war starts in economic collapse, or just when they're about to have economic collapse in the U.S., maybe they trigger a black swan or something to distract you, i.e. starting World War III. So that's what I would be looking for next. What is the next distractionary event that is going to occur to refocus people away from the markets, away from something else, and to get you focused on this thing, away from the war, and get you focused. Maybe there's going to be some more Chinese balloons floating across, something to distract you so that you put your head down into your cell phone, stop paying attention to the economy and the shambles it's in, and the debt load that you're under, and the debt load that the country is under, and just start going out there, going to the movie theater, going to the amusement park. You know what amuse means? It means to not think. Amuse. Go read the definition of amusement. So anything you do for amusement, play video games, search YouTube, etc., these sorts of things, that's all amusement. And it means things that cause us not to have to think. And that's what the government wants us doing. So as we look at the timeline of the return of the Lord, we absolutely are thinking. We are musing on the subject of Bible prophecy. And I think these are all birth pains. We're going to see this come and go, but it's going to get worse each time. Each time this happens, it's going to get bigger and bigger. And then maybe the pain goes away for a little while. And then the next one is going to be even bigger than that. So you need to be prepared. Any one of these events could be a SHTF sort of trigger. And because we don't know when it happens, you need to be prepared before it happens. So when you're warned, it's a great time to top off any of your preps. Get some extra dollars. Don't take $2,000 out, but go get an extra $100, an extra couple of $20 bills, whatever it may be, out of the bank. Make sure your tank is filled up, because you don't know. And if nothing happens, great. Set that couple of $20 bills aside, put it in a safe or something, and just as backup for a hurricane or a natural disaster of some sort, or economic collapse, whatever it may be, and you'll be far better off. I'll leave it there, guys. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video.